I want to show you a real example of how I use GPT-4 in my day-to-day, why I think it's an amazing tool, and why I think it's just ridiculous that some people still think that it's just smoke and mirrors. So I'm working on some Kubernetes work related to how Kubernetes stores things, so persistent volume, storage classes. This is very specialized knowledge. I would say maybe like 1% to 3% of engineers might have to deal with this on a regular basis. So it's definitely not a hello world program. I'm going to be asking ChatGPT a lot of technical, high level, breathy, but also depthy questions. And I just want to show you how good it is and how I use it every day. So I'm going to start off with this good Stack Overflow post about, I already voted for it, dynamic provisioning and persistent volumes. This came from like my first Google of some issues I was having, and this is a good answer, but there's a lot of terms that I don't understand. So I understand a persistent volume and a volume claim. I'm hazy on storage class, I'm hazy on dynamic provisioning. So I'm going to ask GPT-4 disambiguate these terms. PV, PVC, dynamic provisioning, and storage class. So I didn't tell it these are Kubernetes terms, so it's going to figure out that from the context, so it knows that PVC is not like a PVC pipe in plumbing. So what it's going to do is it's going to go through and it's going to list out, each of these terms. It's nice that it's provided that this belongs to storage, a type of storage. And so it's formatting this answer great. Just to understand what a dynamic provisioning is, well, let's actually jump to the storage class. Storage class provides a way for administrators to describe the classes or types of storage they offer. When a PVC specifies a storage class, yada, yada, yada. So my first question is, does an administrator have to specify the storage class up front? So my thinking is like, if I'm on my laptop, do I have to give the Kubernetes cluster access to storage? And it's saying no. And then it gets into some cloud resources, which I think is important because I use Amazon Elastic Kubernetes services. And so it says there's usually a default storage class already set up that allows users to create persistent volume claims without specifying. So this is telling me that most likely I don't have to worry about this, and that's really great. So I'm running on my laptop Docker Desktop locally, and Docker Desktop has a Kubernetes engine running in it. So that's my laptop's Kubernetes. So let's see what GPT-4 knows about this. In Docker Desktop, how can I tell what the storage class is? So it understands Docker Desktop. It says that it's a Kubernetes engine on a single node cluster. Now I love this, it jumps right into the kubectl commands. So this is the command line interface that would tell me what the storage class is, which is exactly what I wanted. Again, this is pretty niche, right? It's Kubernetes, Docker Desktop, and it jumps right into the kubectl commands. So it's giving me a pretty in-depth answer, which is good. Now, I use a tool called K9s instead of kubectl for most commands. Or in K9s, how can I see the storage class? So let's see if it knows about K9s. So it understands that K9s is a terminal-based UI, and it's more visually engaging than kubectl. So right now it's telling me how to do this. So launch K9s, which I'm going to do. It knows the keyboard shortcuts, which is pretty crazy. So typing colon followed by storage class or SC. I didn't know this abbreviation SC was what to do. So that's pretty wild. So let me show you this in action. I'm going to bring up my K9s instance, and I'm going to type :sc. Sorry, it's just :s. Yikes. Yeah, there it was, sc. So there it is. The provisioner is docker.io.hostpath. Let's just see if it would have known that. What do you expect the provisioner to be on Docker desktop? So look, it knows that the storage class is hostpath, and the provisioner is docker.io hostpath. So it's like it knows what the output of this tool is just from the docs, and it's an LLM. It's not like it's using this tool. So it's pretty incredible how it just knows things, whereas I have to learn things as I go. So let me drill in because I don't really understand what this means. So in layman's terms, what is this storage class? Is it files on my hard drive? Is it a database? This is all on my laptop for reference. So that might be a question I'd ask a colleague. And I didn't phrase that very well, but it understands the context to just get into it. So let's see what it says. In layman's terms, is it a file on my hard drive? Yes. Neat. That's cool. I didn't know that. So Kubernetes on Docker desktop is creating directories and files on my laptop's hard drive. And it's not a database. Well, that kind of makes sense. Think of the storage class as the equivalent of picking out a specific type of storage box when you want something. So it's like choosing a cardboard box and blah, blah, blah. Okay, so this is because I said I'm a layman. So I probably don't need this. I guess I'm not really a layman, but interesting. So let's pause for a second before I go further. I just learned a bunch of stuff. I learned it about nuanced technology like Docker Desktop. The documents out there for AWS and Docker Desktop, it would be hard to find all this information, and the Stack Overflow threads would be all over the place. So this probably just saved me a half an hour of research, and it's super clear. Now, let me ask it a more nuanced question about so for example, is this type of storage bad for a production Kubernetes cluster? Now, I'm going to assume it is because typically that's always the case when you're running stuff on your laptop. Yes, the host path provisioner, like the one in Docker Desktop, is not suitable for production. So let's see why. No redundancy. It stores data on the node's local file system in a multi-node cluster. If that node goes down, you lose access to the data. So that's a great point. And it gets into so it has 6 responses. So I'm sure I wouldn't have thought of much of this if I really sat down hard. I would have never thought about the fact that it can expose the node's file system, which can be a security risk. So that does make sense, right? Like if somebody hacked your pod, they'd be able to interact with its file system through this storage class, I guess, whereas if you had block storage, that wouldn't be the case. And bada boom, it gets right into what I was going to ask next, like, what do you recommend? And it recommends AWS and EBS, so elastic block storage. That's exactly what I was after. So finally, the last thing I'll ask it, okay, so imagine I use EBS instead of host path. What do I expect to see in K9s when connected to AWS? So that's, again, it's be pretty amazing if it knows the answer to this offhand. So I'm basically saying if I point my K9s terminal from Docker Desktop to Amazon, what do you expect it to see? And it says the storage class name is going to be GP2 or IO1. I don't know what those mean, so this is something I would drill into more. But it says GP2 is a type of general purpose solid state drive. So I have a cluster And if you're not using K9s, I recommend it. So I'm going to switch contexts. I'm going to go to my AWS instance. Now I'm in there, so I'm going to do SC again. And there it is. So it's saying, okay, yeah, I have AWS Elastic Block Storage, and it's of type GP2. So I could go down this rabbit hole forever, right? I mean, I'm learning so much about Kubernetes storage just from this conversation with GPT4. It's a nuanced topic, and it knows it so well. So anybody out there that still thinks that this isn't really a smart engine, it's not a coding tool, it's like, it really is. In terms of engineering, I don't know about psychology or nutrition or medical stuff, but in terms of engineering, GPT-4 is a super intelligent engineer, and it's an amazing thing to work with. And I'm pretty sure it's going to take my job one day. So anyway, I hope that was insightful, and I appreciate